Have you ever noticed how the heaviest weight we carry is often the weight of unseen effort? What if the very thing you poured your soul into, the promotion, the project, the dream you sacrificed so much to build, slips through your fingers, and the hardest part is not the loss itself, but the silence that follows? Most people do not realize that the deepest wounds of ambition are not caused by failure. They are caused by feeling invisible. If you have ever felt passed over, ignored, or emotionally exhausted from trying to prove your worth to a world that seems to look right past you, this is for you. Stay until the end, because the final lesson may change the way you see this pain forever. You did everything right. You put in the late nights. You sacrificed your quiet weekends. You carried the heavy burden of ambition, trusting the quiet promise that if you just worked hard enough, if you just proved yourself one more time, the reward would finally arrive. And then the door closes. The opportunity goes to someone else. The recognition you earned is given away. In that sudden empty space, the mind begins to spin. You ask yourself, what did I do wrong? Am I not enough? We immediately turn our ambition into a weapon against ourselves. We replay every conversation, every meeting, every minor flaw, obsessively searching for the exact moment we ruined our chances. This is how healthy drive turns into self-punishment. The mind, desperate for control, prefers to blame itself rather than accept the unpredictable nature of reality. It whispers that if you had just been smarter, faster, or louder, things would be different. But here is the truth. Buddhist wisdom teaches us a difficult but liberating reality. Our deepest suffering arises when we attach our inner peace to external validation. We build our identities around outcomes we cannot control. When we tie our self-worth to a job title, a specific opportunity, or the applause of others, we place the keys to our happiness in hands that are not our own. Imagine a great tree growing deep within a vast, silent forest. For years, it stretches its roots into the dark earth. It pushes through hard soil, withstands brutal winter storms, and endures the scorching summer heat. It grows magnificent and strong, but no human ever walks past it. No one sees it. Does the tree suddenly stop growing because no one is there to applaud its height? Does it decide its roots are worthless because human eyes have not witnessed its struggle? No. The tree grows because it is its nature to reach for the light. Its strength is its own reward. Think about your own life. When you were overlooked for that opportunity, what exactly was broken? Was it your actual ability? Was it your talent? Or was it the story you told yourself about what that opportunity meant? We often confuse our worth with our recognition. We begin to believe that our effort is only valuable if someone else crowns it with success. Pause, breathe, observe this feeling of disappointment without letting it become who you are. You are allowed to feel the sting of being overlooked. It is natural, but you must not let that rejection convince you that your effort was wasted. Your dedication, your resilience, the fire you built in the dark, they belong to you. No one can give them to you, and no one can take them away by failing to notice them. Because peace is not something you earn from others. It is something you make space for within yourself. But letting go of the need to be seen is only the first step. And this is where the next truth begins. Because beneath every crushed expectation is an illusion we have been desperately trying to hold on to. 2. The illusion of the destination. What if the destination you are breaking yourself to reach is nothing more than a mirage? Here is a truth that is deeply uncomfortable to face. We are addicted to the idea of arrival. When we are overlooked for an opportunity, the pain is not just about losing the role or the project. It is about losing the fantasy of what that opportunity was supposed to give us. We convince ourselves that if we just get the promotion, if we just secure that one specific achievement, all our self-doubt will vanish. The anxiety will fade. we will finally feel like we are enough. We spend our lives waiting in the after. We tell ourselves, I will finally be happy after I get this job. I will finally rest after they recognize my hard work. And so, we push ourselves to the point of absolute exhaustion. We sacrifice our peace, our sleep, and our quiet moments, throwing them all into the furnace of ambition, hoping it will fuel our journey to this magical finish line. But when the opportunity is suddenly given to someone else, the finish line vanishes. We are left standing in the cold, feeling as though our entire future has been stolen. But Buddhist wisdom asks us to look closer at this pain. It teaches us that much of our suffering comes from the illusion of a permanent destination. We suffer because we cling to the belief that the future holds a salvation that the present moment lacks. This is the subtle danger of unchecked ambition. It tricks the mind into believing that you are incomplete, exactly as you are, and that you must acquire something outside of yourself to become whole. But in reality, there is no final arrival. Everything is impermanent. Even if you had secured the opportunity, the satisfaction would have eventually faded, and the mind would have quickly found a new mountain to conquer. Imagine a traveler wandering through a vast, blinding desert. In the distance, they see a shimmering lake. Desperate for water, they begin to run. They ignore the quiet beauty of the dunes, the coolness of the morning wind, and the strength of their own legs. Their only focus is the water ahead. They run until they are completely exhausted, their breath ragged and their body breaking down. But when they finally reach the spot, the water disappears. It was only a mirage created by the heat. The traveler falls to their knees in despair, completely unaware that all the while they carried a full canteen of water on their own back. How often do we do this in our modern lives? We chase a specific outcome, a title, a raise, a form of external approval, convinced it will quench our inner thirst. We ignore the life happening around us right now. We ignore our own inherent value, carrying our heavy ambition like a burden. Ask yourself, what exactly were you hoping this missed opportunity would give you? Were you hoping it would give you confidence? Were you hoping it would finally prove to the world that you belong? Stop chasing the mirage. Let the feeling of loss rise, but recognize it for what it is, the loss of an illusion. You do not need this specific destination to prove your worth. Pause, breathe, feel the ground beneath your feet right now. The peace you are desperately seeking at the end of the journey is already available to you right where you stand. Because true fulfillment is not found in the place you are going, it is found in the way you walk the path. But recognizing this illusion brings us to an even deeper challenge. If we stop defining ourselves by the destination, who are we when the world refuses to applaud our efforts? And this is where the next truth begins. 3. Separating your worth from their recognition. What if the people who overlooked you were simply incapable of seeing you? Here is the truth few people want to face. We spend our lives handing the pen to other people, allowing them to write the story of our value. We work endlessly, pouring our energy into a project, a career, or a dream, and then we wait. We wait for a boss, a committee, or a peer to give us permission to feel proud. When they choose someone else, we do not just think, they made a different choice. We think, I am completely inadequate. We let the inability of another person to recognize our effort completely shatter our self-respect. This is the heavy burden of tying your inner peace to outer praise. You are asking a shifting, unpredictable world to provide you with a permanent sense of stability. It is an impossible demand. Buddhist wisdom teaches us to look closely at the nature of perception. How others see you is heavily filtered through their own conditioning, their own priorities, and their own limitations. Their decision to overlook you is a reflection of their current reality, not a final verdict on yours. When you attach your identity to their approval, You become a prisoner to their shifting judgments. You suffer not because you are unworthy, but because you are clinging to a reflection that was never accurate to begin with. Imagine the full moon rising over a quiet, still ocean. Its light is brilliant, clear, and absolute. But soon, a thick layer of heavy, dark clouds rolls across the sky, completely hiding the moon from the earth below. To anyone standing on the ground, the sky is pitch black. They might even say the moon is gone. But think about this. Does the moon shrink? Does it lose its light? Does it question its own power just because the clouds have blocked it from view? No. The moon remains exactly as it is, luminous and whole, entirely undisturbed by the clouds that stand between it and the eyes of the world. In your own life, the opportunity you missed, the people who passed you over, the systems that failed to reward your dedication, they are just the clouds. They do not diminish your light. They simply could not see it in that moment. Yet, we spend so much of our vital energy cursing the clouds, begging them to part, trying to force them to see us. Ask yourself, whose eyes are you using to measure your worth? Why do you trust the judgment of someone who only sees a fraction of your struggle, more than you trust the quiet knowing within your own heart? What are you afraid will happen if you simply decide that your effort was enough, exactly as it was? Pause, breathe, release the need to be praised by the blind. Let the feeling of being unappreciated rise without making it your identity. You do not have to chase what is already leaving. You do not need to force the door open, because peace comes when you stop auditioning for your own life. Your worth is not a performance waiting for an audience, but when we finally stop seeking their approval, a darker habit often takes its place. When the mind cannot control the outside world, it turns inward to discipline itself. And this is where the next truth begins. 4. The danger of self-punishment. What if the most violent storms you face are the ones you create against yourself? Here is a difficult truth. When we are denied what we desperately want, our first instinct is rarely compassion. It is cruelty. We take the beautiful, natural fire of our ambition and turn it into a heavy whip. When you are overlooked for an opportunity, a quiet panic sets in. Because the mind cannot control the outside world, it desperately tries to take control of the blame. You begin to dissect your own character. You analyze every word you spoke in the interview. You replay every tiny mistake you made over the past year. You convince yourself that if you had just worked harder, if you had just been smarter, if you were simply a better person, this door would not have closed. Ambition, which once fueled your growth, suddenly becomes a weapon. You punish yourself for not being flawless, secretly believing that if you beat yourself up hard enough, you will somehow protect yourself from ever feeling this pain again. But Buddhist wisdom teaches us a profound lesson about the nature of our suffering. It speaks of the two arrows. The first arrow is the actual event, the rejection, the missed promotion, the closed door. It causes pain, and it is unavoidable. Life will always fire the first arrow, but the second arrow is the one we shoot into ourselves. It is our reaction. It is the harsh judgment, the relentless self-criticism, the belief that we are failures. Buddhism reminds us that the pain of the first arrow is simply part of being human, but the deep, lingering suffering of the second arrow is entirely optional. Imagine a person walking through a dense, quiet forest. Suddenly, they step on a long, sharp thorn. The thorn pierces their foot, and it hurts deeply. But instead of sitting down to gently remove the thorn and tend to the wound, the person becomes furious. They grab a heavy rock from the ground and begin striking their own injured foot. They shout at themselves for being clumsy, for not watching the path, for not being invincible. The original pain of the thorn was small, but the damage done by the rock is devastating. How often do we do this in our modern lives? We experience a professional setback. And instead of resting, we grab the rock. We use our ambition to destroy our own peace. We skip meals, we sacrifice our sleep, and we push ourselves to the point of absolute burnout to prove that we will never be overlooked again. We think this self-punishment is discipline. We think it is dedication, but it is not. It is simply violence. Ask yourself, how many second arrows are you shooting into your own heart right now? Why do you believe that hating your current self will somehow build a better version of you in the future? Is this relentless inner voice actually bringing you closer to success, or is it only feeding your exhaustion? Stop, breathe. Observe this urge to punish yourself without acting on it. Put down the rock. You are allowed to be deeply disappointed. You are allowed to grieve the opportunity you lost. But you do not need to destroy yourself in the process. Treat your ambition, because true resilience is not found in how brutally you can push yourself forward. It is found in how gently you can catch yourself when you fall. But if we stop using self-punishment to drive us, how do we keep growing? And this is where the next truth begins. 5. The wisdom of the bamboo. What if your greatest strength right now is not in standing firm, but in learning how to bend? Here is the truth. When we are denied what we want, our natural instinct is to become rigid. We brace ourselves against the disappointment. We tighten our grip on our goals. We resolve to work twice as hard, pushing through the exhaustion with a stubborn, unbreakable force. We believe that if we just stand tall enough, if we build walls high enough, the storms of failure will never be able to reach us. But rigidity does not prevent pain. It only guarantees that when the pressure becomes too great, we will snap completely. Buddhist wisdom teaches us the profound power of yielding. In our modern lives, we often confuse surrender with defeat. We think letting go means giving up. But in true spiritual practice, non-attachment is not about abandoning your effort or dropping your ambition. It is about dropping the rigid expectation of exactly how and when your life must unfold. When we cling tightly to a single timeline, demanding that we must have this promotion by this year, or this specific success to feel worthy, we create our own suffering. Buddhism reminds us that life does not move in straight, predictable lines. True strength is found in adaptability. Imagine a massive, ancient oak tree and a slender stalk of bamboo standing side by side as a violent hurricane approaches. The oak tree is deeply rooted, heavy, and completely unyielding. It stands proudly, refusing to move an inch as the wind howls against its thick branches. It fights the storm with pure, stubborn resistance. But eventually, the wind becomes too strong. The pressure is too much. With a deafening crack, the massive oak is split in half and destroyed. Now look at the bamboo. As the winds violently crash into it, the bamboo does not fight back. It bends. It bows deeply to the earth, letting the heavy storm wash entirely over it. It yields to the pressure. But the moment the storm passes, the bamboo gracefully springs back up to its center, standing tall and completely unharmed. How often are you acting like the oak tree in your own life? When you were overlooked for that opportunity, did you lock your knees and brace for impact? Did you become bitter, fighting the reality of what happened? We carry our ambition like a stiff, heavy armor, terrified that if we show flexibility, we will fall behind. We convince ourselves that changing our path means we have failed. Ask yourself, where in your life are you refusing to bend? What rigid timeline are you holding onto that is currently causing you to suffer? What would happen if you stopped fighting the reality of this closed door and simply allowed yourself to yield to the present moment? Pause. Breathe. Notice the tension you are holding in your jaw, in your shoulders, in your mind. Let it go. You do not have to fight the storm. Allow this disappointment to pass over you without trying to conquer it. Accept that this specific door is closed right now, and trust that you have the flexibility to survive the redirection, because lasting strength is not about being unbreakable. It is about knowing how to return to your center after the wind stops blowing. But bending to the reality of the present moment raises an important question. If we let go of our rigid goals, how do we define our success? And this is where the next truth begins. 6. Redefining success through right action. What if true success has nothing to do with what you receive and everything to do with how you act? Here is a truth that goes against everything the modern world demands of us. We are conditioned to believe that effort is merely a transaction. We put in the work, the late nights, the creative energy, the heavy lifting, and we expect a receipt. We expect the promotion, the title, the public validation. When the opportunity is given to someone else, we feel cheated. We look at our sacrifices and ask, what was the point of all that hard work if I didn't get the prize? This mindset turns ambition into a fragile, conditional thing. We only offer our best if we are guaranteed a reward. And when the reward does not come, we lose our motivation, our passion, and our sense of purpose. But Buddhist wisdom offers a deeply liberating alternative. It teaches the practice of right action, which means acting with integrity, focus, and care, simply because it is the right way to live. Buddhism reminds us that our only true possessions are our actions. We can control the quality of our effort, but we can never control the fruit of that effort. When you attach your happiness to the outcome, you are handing your peace over to chance. But when you detach from the outcome and focus entirely on the purity of your action, the work itself becomes the reward. Imagine a master gardener tending to a quiet plot of land. Every morning, long before the sun rises, they go out into the cold air. They pull the weeds. They carefully water the soil. They plant the seeds with immense love and steady hands. But they do not stand over the earth and scream at the seeds to grow. They do not threaten the soil. The gardener knows that a late frost might come. They know a sudden storm could wash the seeds away. Does the gardener stop planting? No, because their purpose is not to control the weather or even to guarantee the harvest. Their purpose is simply to tend the garden. The act of planting beautifully is their success. In your own life, your daily work, your skills, your dedication, that is your garden. When you are overlooked for an opportunity, you are suffering because you are trying to control the harvest. You are angry at the frost. You feel that because the weather did not cooperate, all your planting was worthless. But think about the strength you built while tending the soil. Think about the discipline you forged. The skills you developed while chasing that opportunity are yours forever. No one can give them to you, and no one can take them away by failing to promote you. Ask yourself, would you still be proud of the work you did, even if no one ever applauded it? Can you find peace in the quality of your effort, rather than the size of your reward? What if your hard work was never a down payment on a promotion, but simply a reflection of your own high character? Pause, breathe, reclaim your effort. Do your part, put your heart into your work, and then completely release the outcome. Let your dedication belong to you again, not to the people who are judging it. Because true mastery is not about collecting the most trophies. It is about the quiet dignity of doing your work well, even in the dark, but doing the work without knowing when or if the reward will arrive requires something we deeply resist. And this is where the next truth begins. 7. Making peace with the timing of your life. What if the delay you are fighting so bitterly is actually a quiet form of protection? Here is a truth that goes against the very rhythm of our modern world. We are completely obsessed with timelines. We tell ourselves we must achieve a certain title by a certain age. We look at our peers, and if they cross a finish line, before we do, a deep, quiet panic sets in. When an opportunity passes us by, the deepest pain is often not the rejection itself, but the terrifying thought that we are running out of time. We feel like we are falling behind. We feel late to our own lives. And so, we rush. We try to force closed doors open, completely exhausting ourselves to catch up to an imaginary schedule. Buddhist wisdom teaches us the profound peace of accepting the natural unfolding of things. In nature, nothing is rushed, yet everything is eventually accomplished. Our suffering arises when we try to force the present moment to behave like the future. We attach ourselves to the belief that our personal timeline is the only correct timeline, and when reality does not obey, we feel punished. But Buddhism reminds us that you cannot demand a flower to bloom before it is ready. You cannot force a river to flow faster just because you are in a hurry. Imagine a tiny seed planted deep in the cold, dark earth. For weeks, absolutely nothing happens above the surface. To the outside world, the soil looks empty. If the seed were impatient, it might panic. It might try to violently push its way through the heavy dirt before its roots were strong enough to support it, only to be destroyed by the first strong wind. But the seed does not rush. It trusts the darkness. It knows that the deep, unseen work of building roots takes time. It waits for the exact right moment, the perfect alignment of sun and rain, before it finally breaks through the soil and reaches for the sky. In our own lives, being overlooked for an opportunity can feel exactly like being buried in the dark. We scroll through our phones, watching everyone else bloom, watching them celebrate their promotions and public victories, and we feel a crushing sense of inadequacy. We feel like the soil above us is too heavy. But what if this closed door simply means your roots are not finished growing? What if this silent season of your life is not a delay, but a necessary preparation for a weight you are not yet strong enough to carry? Ask yourself, whose timeline are you measuring your life against? Why do you believe that being delayed is the exact same thing as being denied? What are you so afraid will happen if you simply trust that your life is unfolding at the exact right pace? Pause, breathe. Stop trying to force the door open. Let go of the frantic need to rush the clock. You are not running out of time. You are exactly where you need to be, to learn the lesson this moment is trying to teach you. Because peace is not found in accelerating your journey to match someone else's speed. It is found in making peace with the quiet pace of your own steps. But once we let go of the timeline, how do we keep moving forward without burning out? And this is where the next truth begins. 8. Transforming ambition into sustainable purpose. What if the fire that is meant to light your way is actually the very thing burning you to the ground? Here is a truth that highly driven people rarely want to accept. We are taught to treat ambition like an insatiable hunger. We believe that to be successful, we must be entirely consumed by our goals. When we face a setback, like being overlooked for an opportunity we worked relentlessly for, our immediate reaction is often to throw more fuel on the fire. We vow to sleep less, work longer, and push through our exhaustion until we forcefully make the world notice us. We turn our ambition into a harsh master, and we become its exhausted servants. But this frantic, desperate kind of ambition is entirely unsustainable. It relies on a constant, heavy supply of external validation to keep burning. And when that validation is denied, the mind turns to anxiety, deep resentment, and overwhelming emotional exhaustion. Buddhist wisdom offers a different path. It introduces us to the concept of the middle way, the profound, quiet balance between tight, rigid clinging and complete apathy. In our modern lives, we often believe there are only two choices. Either we hustle relentlessly and sacrifice our inner peace, or we give up completely and lose our drive. But Buddhism teaches us that true energy does not come from frantic craving. It comes from calm, aligned purpose. You do not need to destroy your ambition, you simply need to transform it. You must separate the pure desire to create and grow from the ego's desperate need to be applauded. Imagine a spark falling into a dry, overgrown forest. Fanned by harsh winds, it quickly becomes a raging wildfire. The fire is incredibly powerful, blindingly bright, and entirely destructive. It consumes everything in its path, the trees, the soil, the air, until there is absolutely nothing left to burn. And then, having destroyed the very environment that sustained it, the wildfire starves and dies, leaving behind only dead ash. Now, imagine a single candle resting quietly in a dark room. The flame is small, steady, and perfectly contained. It does not try to aggressively consume the room. It simply burns, providing clear, gentle, and lasting light hour after hour. It is sustainable because it is balanced. How are you treating your own ambition? When you were passed over for that opportunity, did you let your drive become a wildfire? Did you allow it to violently consume your quiet weekends, your peace of mind, and your fragile sense of self-worth? We often wear our absolute exhaustion as a badge of honor, secretly hoping that if we burn ourselves down entirely, someone will finally reward our ashes. But no career, no title, and no opportunity is worth destroying the vessel that holds you. Ask yourself, is your current ambition feeding your spirit, or is it eating you alive? Are you working from a place of deep, steady purpose, or are you running on the frantic, fearful energy of needing to prove you are enough? Pause, breathe, gently lower the temperature of your striving. You do not have to abandon your beautiful goals, but you must stop using them to punish yourself. Let your ambition be the quiet candle in the room, gently guiding your steps, without burning down your life. Because true greatness is not measured by how fast you can consume yourself in the name of success. It is measured by how steadily you can keep your light burning through the unpredictable winds of life. But once the fire is calm and the illusions of validation are cleared away, where do we finally rest? And this brings us to the final truth. 9. Returning to your center. What if the silence that follows a closed door is not a punishment, but a profound invitation? Let us return to that heavy, quiet moment when you first realized the opportunity was gone. The sting of rejection, the feeling of total invisibility, the frantic, exhausting search within yourself to figure out exactly what you did wrong. We began this journey looking at the crushing weight of unseen effort. We looked at how easily healthy drive turns into a weapon we use against ourselves. But look closely at what remains now that the smoke has cleared. The pain you felt was not actually the loss of the opportunity itself. It was the loss of the illusions you attached to it. You now know that the magical destination you were breaking yourself to reach was only a mirage. You realize that begging for the recognition of others is like asking the clouds to validate the moon. You understand that punishing yourself with the second arrow of harsh judgment only deepens your suffering. You have learned that true resilience is bending like the bamboo rather than snapping under the pressure of your own rigid expectations. You see now that your work is a beautiful garden you tend for its own sake, completely independent of the harvest. You know that the timing of your life cannot be rushed, just as the seed cannot be forced to sprout before it is ready. And you have learned to calm the destructive wildfire of your ambition, turning it back into a steady, sustainable candle. So where does that leave you right now, in this very moment? It leaves you entirely whole. The world did not diminish you by overlooking you. It simply revealed exactly where you were abandoning yourself. For so long, you placed your center of gravity outside of your own body. You handed your inner peace over to a title, a manager, a specific outcome, and a future that did not yet exist. You walked out of your own heart to go searching for worth in the eyes of strangers. Now, it is time to call your energy back. Stop waiting for the world to suddenly wake up and notice your struggle. Stop auditioning for a sense of belonging. Pause, breathe, Feel the steady rhythm of your own heart. Your effort was real. Your dedication was beautiful. The resilience you built in the dark belongs entirely to you. You do not need anyone else's signature to make your hard work valid. You can finally lay down the heavy, exhausting burden of needing to prove that you are enough. You are enough simply because you exist. The opportunity that passed you by was just one single wave in the vast, deep ocean of your life. Let it wash back out to sea. Do not jump into the freezing water to chase it. Stand firmly on the shore. There will be other doors. There will be other paths. But this time, as you move forward, you will not walk as someone desperately chasing external validation. You will walk completely grounded, anchored in the quiet, unshakable knowing of your own worth. If these lessons touched your heart, share this video with someone who may need a little more peace today. The storm has passed. You can let go now.